friends, thanks for coming today for mixed media class. Today we are going to demystify mixed media. Once we demystify it a little bit, we're going to go ahead and get into a project. But I wanted to let you know what mixed media is. And basically, it's super simple. Mixed media is when you take two different forms of media and you put them together in a project. And it's as simple as that. So if you're creating a tag, and most of us have done that, right? So you have your paper, you might add a sticker to it, you might add some marker, you might draw something in, you might ink it with your ink pad, you might add a little strip of trim, of fabric. You've mixed your media, right? That's all it is. So when we look around, we see all different forms. And I feel like a lot of us think that mixed media looks a certain way because a lot of mixed media artists, they do go into a certain, I guess, genre and look of it, but they're not all the same. I want to give you an example of a friend of mine. Her name is Carrie Gibson Art. Well, her channel is Carrie Gibson Art. Her name is Carrie. She does mixed media. She's incredibly talented. And she typically uses blues, whites, purples, not quite pastels, but definitely leaning into that. And so she has her own vibe, if you will. And it's very different from other people's. I'm very attracted to hers because of her color palette that she typically sticks with. And then on the other side, you might have somebody like my friend Darcy of Misadventures with Mixed Media. She uses more vibrant color palette. She's not afraid to get into like dark blues and mix it with, say, maybe yellows and things like that, a more vibrant color palette. So that's what she does. And it's fascinating to see the beautiful things that she makes. So my hope for you is that you would figure out what do you like, first of all, and then sort of sinking into that and creating your own feeling, your own vibe, something that's distinct to you. Don't be a copycat. Now, we can get inspiration from people, and we do. That's why we love YouTube. People have these great ideas, right? But make it your own. And that's what we want to do as we're learning different forms of mixed media. Many of you might be beginners, so we're going to start today with something really, really simple. We are going to make a mixed media tag. Okay? Grab a piece of cardstock, or if you don't have cardstock, that's perfectly fine. Go ahead and grab a cereal box, a piece of cardboard, something like that. If you just went to the grocery store, you probably have something in your pantry where you can get a piece of cardboard that'll be stiff enough to be used as a tag. Then, if you've got a book page hanging around, they are great foundation pieces, right? They're just great. You almost can't go wrong with a book page. If you don't have a book page, that's okay. You can grab a magazine page, and if you don't have one of those, that's okay. You can go ahead and grab a piece of decorative paper, scrapbook paper perhaps, or a paper napkin, something like that. Then I want you to grab some trim. So it could be satin trim, it could be any kind of trim, honestly, just a spool of something that you have in your cabinet. If you don't have one, do you wrap gifts? You might have, trims and ribbons and stuff with your gift wrapping stuff. So just grab something like that. And if you don't have actual trim, that's okay. We'll slice a piece of paper and use that on your tag, like a decorative piece of paper. Do you have ink from an ink pad? If you do, grab that. And if you don't, that's okay. Grab a marker, not black, maybe brown, or a color that you're going to be using on your tag. And if you're not sure what direction you're going with on your tag, just grab a couple different ones. And then you're going to want to have a focal point. So you can grab an image from a magazine, you can grab a sticker, you could grab any sort of embellishment that could work as a focal point. okay? So that's going to be like the main thing that your eye sees, and the rest of it's just going to be dancing around it, okay? So that's what we're going to do today, and each week we are going to be building on our mixed media skills. But let's get started with today. Welcome to Mixed Media Class. This class is about demystifying mixed media. Today's the first episode, and we're going to keep it super simple today. We're going to do something that you've probably already done and didn't even realize it was mixed media. Because what is mixed media? Mixed media is when you take things that are not the same and you put them together, and now you have mixed media. For example, I have some paper here, but I also have this piece of fiber. Suddenly, it's mixed media. Some people think of mixed media as being inks and paint and things like that, and that's true. But that's not all it is. And I think it's fun to know that, because that means most of us have created in this way and didn't even realize that we were doing mixed media. So what you're going to need for today's class is, something hard, cardstock, a cereal box, something like that. This is a piece of pretty heavy duty cardstock. It was going in the trash, and I saved it from that. This is going to be my tag. We're going to make tags today. We might make one or two. Definitely making one. We might make two. I'm not sure yet. I haven't decided. Anyway, you need, a firm piece of cardstock or cardboard or something like that. Okay, you want that for your base. And then you're going to want some paper. So I grabbed this also, going through my stash and trying to use it up. This was a scrap. And so I thought, well, the red and the brown look pretty nice together, and I could probably come up with something kind of different, right? So I grabbed these papers. And as you can see, this was a scrap. It's not very big, but I wonder if we can incorporate this onto our tag somehow. So we're certainly going to give that a try. And then you need a focal point. And I thought she would make a great focal point. So I'll probably fussy cut her out, or at least loose fussy cut her out. So I want you to have a focal point. Yours could be a sticker, a butterfly, it could, whatever you want. And then I want you to have some ink. If you've got ink, if you don't have ink, grab a marker, or a crayon, or, something like that, where you can sort of spread some color. And so you'll notice now that we have several different forms of media. We've got ink, trim, and paper, right? And there we are. So it's going to be simple. It's going to be fun. I figured I'd kind of go with a Valentine's feel, because that's the month that we're in, and I thought we'd have fun with that. But you can create whatever you want. So let's go ahead and get started. What we're going to do first is make sure your focal point's ready to go. Mine isn't, so I'm going to go ahead and cut her out. And while I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking I might go ahead and cut the flowers out too, just in case I decide I want to use them. It might be nice if they're ready to go, because I might want to layer with them or something. I am going to cut them away from her, because I don't like the way that she's next to them, but I can have them on the side of the tag if I want to. So those are ready to go. Now let's go ahead and get her cut out. I'll try to cut a little closer in, although I promise it's not going to be perfect, but we'll see what we can do. She's holding an umbrella, so I've got to try to get around that if I can. Right, so the first thing we're going to do is cover this with this paper here, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put glue on the base, and then I'm going to flip it over onto my cardstock. My cardstock is double-sided, so I can do that. And maybe if we put a sentiment on there, maybe it doesn't say Happy Valentine's Day. If we want to use it in a future journal that's not Valentine theme, we can just make it sort of a love or romance or something like that. We'll see. We'll look through the words and see what we can find. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pop this on here. Let me double check, make sure. Yep, we're good. Oops, oh, I just dropped it. That's okay. Let's just push it over here. Luckily, I put plenty of glue on there. All right, we are going to let that dry for just a minute before I cut it, because it's a little bit of a mess there. Now, just because I want to use up this scrap, I'm going to go ahead and put it on here. And we can see it's a little bit wide, so let's go ahead and cut that down. I don't mind the height too much. I will take it down a little bit, but we definitely have to make it thinner.
So I want to make sure this is perfectly straight too. I'll take a little bit off of both sides. Yeah, I felt like this side was a little crooked, and it actually was. All right, now we're going to put this on here, and then let's see how much we want to take off the top and the bottom. Maybe just a little bit. Okay, so before we move forward, we're going to grab our ink. And I got my dauber here. Now, if you don't have a dauber, that's okay. You can go around it just with your ink pad. You guys have probably seen me do it 1,000 times. We're going to go ahead and go around the edges. And now that we've added ink to this, we suddenly have a mixed media piece. How simple is that, you guys? It doesn't have to be paint and inks and chalks, and I'm talking about the other kind of inks, you know. But it can be, of course. Okay, and you know what? Let's go ahead and do it right around this side too. I think my brown ink is just about out. I mean, I'm getting some color from it, but not as rich as you would think. I've added water to it a few times. I might just have to upgrade. Anyway, we've got that inked up. Gives it a little bit of a punch. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and put this on here. I just think that looks so pretty together. It's so rich, right? Go ahead and get that on there. It's interesting to me when you do a mat, so like this tag, the base started out so big, but when you take and you mat it like this, it takes up a lot of space, and then you don't have as much room to fill in. On my introductory video that I did for this class, I mentioned that you might want to have a book page. And so if you didn't have decorative paper, you could use a book page for your base. Well, this one has stuff on it, but you know, you could put that down. We might even use some of that actually. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see how intricate we want to get with this. So as mentioned, if you didn't have scrapbook paper that you liked, you can use a book page and that could be your base. And you can mat it like I did with something else, or you don't have to. That's completely up to you. Now let's play with our focal point here. Okay. That's looking pretty nice. If I was going to add some of this, where would I do it? Let's see. Let's tear this apart here. So what we have here is book page with modeling paste over top. Let's see if it adds interest or if it detracts from it. Yeah, it's not for this piece. It's definitely not for this piece, and that's okay. So I'm thinking, let's think about this now. We also have this. If we want to take up some space somehow, we can add this to it. Not sure if we need to, and if we did, what is it that we would do? We could, for example, start here. Let's see, how would we want to do this? We would tear this way, like that, and then we would cut it here. Could come up a little bit if I wanted to. We could cut right here. Let's cut it and then we'll see if we want to use it. We certainly don't have to use it, but we sure can. This was another scrap. Let's try this on for size. I could put it down here at the bottom like that. It does look nice. I do like it. What would happen if I had that there and then I had this piece up at the top? That looks pretty cool. And then let's play with this. Let's put this on here. Okay. And then let's put her on here. Okay, my friends, I really like that, and I'm glad that I saw that scrap and decided to play with it. So let's go ahead and do that. I think let's go ahead and we will ink up the edge of both of the pieces of scrap. I'm putting it almost up to the edge. I'm letting a little bit of that edge show. Same down here. And now let's see where we want to put the flowers and Our Lady. I'm gonna bring her up a little bit. Let's see here, and Well, maybe I'll bring her down a little bit. Let's see. What do you guys think of that? I mean, I think it looks pretty stinking cute. Let's go ahead and get the flowers on first, and I think I'll have them try to cover this bottom part. All right, and now we'll get some glue on her. So this was great. We did our first mixed media, very simple, so easy to make a tag, and I bet you didn't even realize that you had already been a mixed media artist, so that's fun, right? Takes the mystery out of the whole thing. You can just mix anything, and it suddenly is mixed media. All right, now we don't want to forget our piece of scrap fabric that we've had for all this time. A long time I've had this. Let's go ahead and put this up here, and we'll use this as a, what do we call those? I'm gonna call it a tag pull, but I'm sure there's a different name that we actually use for them. Just gonna hot glue that right on there. And we're going to go over here and let's see how tall we want it. Right about there. So I'm going to clip it right here. And then we can put another piece of glue on here. You could use Fabri-Tac or 3-in-1 if that's what you have on hand. There we go. Now if we really wanted to add another layer, I could get a brad to stick right there just to embellish this so it's not super plain. Well friends, I was looking at my brads and I have some in different colors and they're a decent size, but as I was looking I spotted this butterfly, and don't you think that's perfect right there? So let's go ahead and glue that on. I'm going to go ahead and use hot glue. You could use 3-in-1. You could use Gem Tack, which I love using actually. I think it works good, but I do think the hot glue will be great on wood. So I'm going to go with that. And hopefully it'll do the job. I do believe it will. If I didn't think it would, I would not use it. So we're gonna squish that on there and let that dry for just a minute, okay? All right, my friends, this is our mixed media tag. I love how it turned out. Everything was a scrap except for the one scrapbook paper that's on the very bottom. But everything else was a scrap. And I think that's great. That's so satisfying to me. Even the base that I put it on was an absolute scrap. So I'm super happy with how it turned out. So let's just recap real quick. So we started with our base, which was cardstock. And we added paper to it. And we added a couple of different layers of paper. And then we added ink. So that's where we started with our mixed media, because we mixed in some ink with our paper. And then we added fabric trim here, and then we added this wood piece. So simple. You guys have already done this probably. I'm thinking most of you have, and you were doing mixed media and probably didn't even realize it. So it's been a lot of fun. In collage class, I started to add some mixed media in there. I didn't talk about it being mixed media, but I did that. I wanted to sort of introduce you gently and slowly to it. So, and you might have noticed that. But here we are, and if you missed that and you want to go check it out, that's under collage, and the name of the videos is Collage Class, and they are numbered from 1 to, I think I did 10, yeah, 1 to 10. Next week, we are going to work on borders and edges. So if you have a piece of paper, and it could be a piece of paper that's going to go into a journal. Perhaps let's use that as our example. Actually, let me pull a journal over so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So let's say you've got a piece of paper, and let me see, let me find a plain one so I can, okay. So let's say you're working on a journal or anything. This applies for tags. It applies for anything that has an edge, okay? But let's just pretend for argument's sake that we're working in a journal. I'm going to show you different techniques, how to make interesting edges. And I think that's a nice, again, slow introduction into some different ways of applying mixed media to our work. So you'll notice here I have fabric on this edge, and I do that a lot. Nothing on this one, nothing on this one, a little pocket on this one, but you'll notice here's trim. So I do a lot of trim on my edges. So it'll be fun to go ahead and do some other mixed media sort of stuff on the edges. So I hope you will join me for that, my friends. I really appreciate you joining me today for this, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. Thanks for watching. See you soon.